heavens declare the wonders of your story, and the night stars are hung like the jewels in the crown of your glory. The universe expands, it's exploding with your grace. We've seen light years of love travel through all time and space. Oh, you're higher than the sun. You're the only one who can make our gray skies blue. You're brighter than the stars, more wonderful by far, and we give our praise to you. The planets were formed in the palm of your hand. You're the center of everything. All you see is yours to command. Oh, you're higher than the sun. You're the only one who can make our gray skies blue. You're brighter than the stars, more wonderful by far, and we give our praise to you. You're higher than the sun. You're the only one who can make our gray skies blue. You're brighter than the stars, more wonderful by far, and we give our praise to you. The works of your hand are more than just for show. They may not use words, but they tell us what they know. That there's one greater, higher up above. And the sun never sets on your love. Oh, you're higher than the sun. You're the only one who can make our gray skies blue. You're brighter than the stars, more wonderful by far, and we give our praise to you. Oh, you're higher than the sun. You're the only one who can make our gray skies blue. You're brighter than the stars, more wonderful by far, and we give our praise to you. Everything is embers, then my heart remembers that you are here with me in the middle of the storm. When everything gets scattered, my heart will not be shattered. You are here with me. Whenever I call your name, whenever I call out your name, your answer always is the same. This truth that comes it sets me free. You are here, here with me. In the middle of the battle, this song will be my war cry, so my heart cannot deny that you are here with me. In the middle of the wilderness, surrounded by loneliness, and when my soul cannot find rest, you are here with me. Whenever I call out your name, your answer always is the same. There's truth that comes, it sets me free. You are here, here with me. Whenever I call, and whenever I call out your name, your answer always is the same. This truth that comes, it sets me free. You're right here, here with me. Whenever I call out your name, your answer always is the same. This truth that comes, it sets me free. You are here, here with me. Whenever I call out your name, your answer always is the same. This truth that comes, it sets me free. You are here, here with me. You know, it occurs to me that there are often times when we might find ourselves in the middle of the fire, the storm, the battle. And how long, I know for me, that it can take me until I do the thing that I should do at the very, very start of that thing, which is to call out to God, and maybe it's just to say, I need help, I need rescue, I need wisdom, I need grace, I need mercy, I need strength. And maybe you find yourself in that battle right now and you haven't yet, or now is a perfect time to maybe once again to call out on God. Because I believe that in the midst of any battle, He's already there. He's meeting us in that place. And our role becomes simply to respond to His presence in that moment. So I want to encourage you, if you're facing something right now, to pray, and maybe that prayer is simply, God, I need you. God, I need you in this moment. I need you in this battle. I don't see a way out. I don't think I'm strong enough. I don't think I'm wise enough or clever enough. God, in the middle of whatever storm that we're facing, would you please meet us in the middle of it? Would you give us strength? God, would you give us courage? There's nothing too difficult for you, God. There's no problem too big for you, God. It's never too late. It's never too big. It's never too awful. It's never too disastrous for you to step into the middle of it, God. We want to respond to you in the middle of our storm, to call upon your name. No matter what we're facing, God. Oh, how high would I climb mountains if the mountains were where you hide? Oh, how far I'd scale the valleys if you graced the other side. Oh, how long have I chased rivers from lowly seas to where they rise, against the rush of grace descending from the source of its supply. 'Cause in the highlands and the heartache, you're neither more or less inclined. I would search and stop at nothing. You're just not that hard to find. So I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is. In the highlands and heartache all the same. Oh, oh. Know how far beneath your glory does your kindness extend the path? from where your feet rest on the sunrise to where you sweep the sinners past. Oh, how fast would you come running if just to shadow me through the night? Trace my steps through all my failures and walk me out the other side. Who could dare ascend that mountain, that valley hill called Calvary? But for the one I call Good Shepherd, who like a lamb was slain for me. So I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. You're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. 'Cause you're the heaven where my heart is, in the highlands and heartache all the same. Whatever I walk through, whatever I walk through, wherever I am, your name can move mountains wherever I stand. And if I ever walk through the valley of death, I'll sing through the shadows my song of ascent. Whatever I walk through, wherever I am, your name can move mountains wherever I stand. And if I ever walk through the valley of death, oh, I sing through the shadows my song of ascent. Oh, my song of ascent. Oh, my song of ascent. Oh, my song of ascent. My song of ascent. From the greatest of all valleys come the pastures we call grace, a mighty river flowing upwards from a deep but empty grave. So I will praise you on the mountain, and I will praise you when the mountain's in my way. 'Cause you're the summit where my feet are. So I will praise you in the valleys all the same. No less God within the shadows, no less faithful when the night leads me astray. You're the heaven where my heart is, in the highlands and heartache all the same.
So I got to tell you, I'm just super grateful to be here tonight and to be together worshiping. Here at Terra Nova, we have this worshiping value. We say that it's important for us to take time and energy to worship God. And one of the things that we say that it does is it aligns us with reality. It gives us perspective. It helps us to right-size things, the size of our problems and also the size of our God. Have you, in these moments that we've just experienced, gotten a chance to get some perspective? Boy, I sure have. And, the other thing that we get also to benefit from is the perspective that comes from being together, that we are not on life's journey alone, but that we do this within community. And that is a super helpful thing to be able to just to be together and to move together, and then to move towards God. And so I'm just so glad that you came today to Terra Nova. And my name is Lyle. Again, just welcome, and it's great to have you here. Before you have a seat, though, I've got a question for you. Oftentimes we like to ask some questions. And the question is that what's a country that you'd like to visit someday? You know, like one that you haven't been to yet. I've been to a few, but maybe you've got one or two, okay? So can you think about that? A country that, man, it would be great to go see that place. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to find a person nearby and find out their name and the answer that they would have to that question, okay? Ready? Go for it. All right. Hey, why don't you go and grab a seat if you haven't done so yet. You can pick up that conversation afterwards as well. Man, lots of different places. Just spin a globe, right? And there's lots of different choices and things. So if you're a little bit limited, right, if you're afraid of flying, but I guess you could take a boat, right? And that would work out okay. Well, again, just wanted to welcome you all to Terra Nova. And man, it is just so great to be together. Just really excited about the time that we are having and the moments that we're going to have to come. And what I have been asked to do is to walk you through what you got when you walked in here. It's a weekend program, so why don't you go ahead and take this and go ahead and open it up. And as you do, what I want to do is I want to start it all the way at the back with this perforated tear-off card that we call the Connect card. I wonder if you can find it. It's right here. And already I hear the sound of ripping, which is a great sound for me. So you can go ahead and tear the perforation, or fold the perforation a couple times, and you go ahead and separate this, and now you're ready with a pen nearby to fill this out. And so here's the thing, is that whether you're here and it's your first time, you're a guest, and we just want to thank you, by the way, if you are here for the first time, or you've been here a couple of times or more, is the Connect card is our way of just getting to know you better. And so it's actually something that we really value, to have everybody fill out the Connect card. And as we're getting to know you better, especially if you're our guest, we just want to encourage you just to give us as much information as you feel comfortable with, and we'll definitely be good with that. For those of you that have been around a while, is that you know that the Connect card is just mission critical every week as we share prayer requests and updates, how we're doing in life. We sometimes use this with a question that we might have that we're working on, and if you have one of those, then we'll try to get with you and answer that. And just a way to, just to get deeper into the life of Terra Nova. And so what I'd love to have you do is to take some time with this and fill this out, and then we'll get a chance to get this from you as we close tonight. So anyway, that'd be great for you to work on that. So now, I know that some of you might be here because of the series that we're in. I just think that we're in a series that it's just a really good series to be in. We're doing these big God questions, and there's a bunch of them. We started actually on Easter weekend with the first one, and that we're going to be diving into a question that might be the most critical question and the most asked question of all, and it's this question that deals with pain and suffering. And maybe you came tonight because you're like, I want to hear what they've got to say about that. And if that's the case, man, I'm just so glad that you're here, and good on you for being here. But I also wanted to tell you that as we're going to go through this question, is that here at Terra Nova, is that we're just really convinced that we do not want to make this a theoretical exercise. Is that our church is really passionate about doing something about the pain and suffering in the world, and there's a lot of it. Sometimes it's even hard to know where to begin. But we're going to begin at a place that maybe was not one of the countries that you mentioned, one of the places you'd like to go. It's a place in Africa. It's a country called Zambia. And in Zambia is that there is a group of people that are courageously serving children in Zambia. And that they're providing meals in a place that is one of the more poor places in the world, one of the more poor places in Africa for that matter. And that we've got an opportunity to work with an organization with kids around the world to provide for them 100,000 meals that are going to help them move through the year in a event that we call Kids Feeding Kids. Now, Kids Feeding Kids is something that we've been doing for a few years now, and it's like our signature, let's get everybody together and make God's love famous event. It happens on May 17th and 18th weekend. It's a Friday night and a Saturday, and you can choose actually either of those or both, okay? So it's an opportunity for us to take 2 hours on either of those times or either of those days, and then we are going to, again, attempt to pack 100,000 meals to go to Zambia. And man, we just really love to have everybody participate, and getting in play, I think, is going to be real easy for you. As you leave today, you're going to see the Kids Feeding Kids table. You probably saw that when you came in here. And there, you'll get a chance to meet some folks that are helping us run the event. And you're going to also get a chance to see the bags that we're going to pack, the meal bags. You'll see the boxes that we put those bags into. There's other information about the Kids Around the World organization. And it's also an opportunity for you to for you to sign up. And so what we'd love to have you do is to think about which of those days are going to work for you, and then just begin to let us make a commitment. Let us know, hey, I will be there, and that will be really great to know, just so that we can balance out those the 2 days of the event. The other thing that we want to encourage you to do is begin thinking about who it is that you can invite, because Kids Feeding Kids is just one of these ideal things. It's going to be outside in our parking lot. It's a chance for us to invite just frankly everybody we know, friends, family. It's a great event to bring groups. We've had people in the past that have brought people from their work and people from their school and people from their sports teams. And that we've packed meals together around the tables. And of course, you'll see here on the flyer in your program that Kids Feeding Kids is an event for kids of all ages from 2 to 92, okay? So we kind of say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but we really want to place focus on this is actually an event that kids can do. And that we want to allow our kids to really shine at this event and to do really well in this event. And so you might be thinking of that there are people, there are kids that are in your orbit. You want to make sure that you invite the kids and the families that are connected to them. And so that would be great. And then the other thing that we want to encourage you to do is to give towards this. In order for us to provide 100,000 meals, we're going to need to raise $30,000. And we can begin tonight working on that. You can go to the table. They'll help you. If you're ready to give and ready to help out with that. It's a big nut. It's a big commitment. We think, though, that if we're working out together, is that we can pull this off and we can do that. And even the kids can be involved in that as well. We've actually got this chore card that our Supernova Kids ministry has put together. So for our children is that they're going to get the cards over at the check-in table of Supernova Kids, and that they've got a whole different way that kids can actually do chores and work to be able to create funding and to be able to contribute to that as well. So it's April. We got May. It's coming up next month. We just wanted to give you a shout out of the bow. We are ready to go. Let's get going on this thing. And again, just want to encourage you to hit the table on your way out to hear more information. And let's go ahead and us kids feed some kids in 2024. Well, again, just want to thank you guys so much for coming. And as I had mentioned to you, the series that we're in, let's go ahead then and jump into part 3 of the Big God Questions.
Pain's a part of life.
I think some people believe it's a test of your faith, but if you don't have a faith to believe in, it kind of makes you wonder why is there suffering in this world?
It was a reason why he took him. Maybe he needed some angels up there to protect, to help him in the fight against the devil.
A baby is a beautiful, wonderful thing. Why doesn't he want me to have this?
Bad things are just the way that you see them.
I think God's in everything we do.
Why would anybody want to create people who do horrible things to each other? It doesn't make any sense.
I don't think God's sitting there and saying these people are hurting and maybe I should help them.
I suppose the answers will come. It's just I'm going through a journey right now that's painful.
I got an email this week from an organization that we do a lot of work with in terms of relief around the world, informing me of a situation that's currently unfolding in the Sudan, where armed conflict between Sudan's government forces and a paramilitary group and others have torn the nation apart. Yet again, millions of people have fled the capital of Khartoum with nothing more than the clothes on the back. According to this email, many of them are now in an area called Kordofan, where this group has access. Hundreds of thousands of war-weary people are living in crude shelters made from no more than mere sticks. Starving people are boiling leaves and foraging for weeds and seeds just to survive. Why is there so much pain and suffering in the world? 3 million Africans forcibly transported and enslaved in Europe and the Americas. 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust. Terrorists fly airplanes loaded with passengers into buildings. The Rwandan genocide. The ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya peoples in the Myanmar. The trafficking of more than 2 million children this year in the global sex trade. Famines right now in Ethiopia, Madagascar, Yemen, the 2004 tsunami in Indonesia that killed 230,000 people, the wars going on in Ukraine, in Israel and Gaza, and now in Sudan, cancer, dementia, child abuse, rape. Richard Dawkins looks at all of this and concludes, the universe that we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is, at bottom, no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. Is that true? It's the number one most asked question, and for many, it's the reason why the whole idea of God, or at least the Christian idea of God, is so unbelievable. And I think it is the most difficult question to answer, not just in a logical way. Logically, it's not as hard to answer, but not just in a way that's logically satisfying, but actually emotionally satisfying, an answer that sits well with us. Why is there so much pain and suffering in the world? If there is a God, if there's the God that you guys keep talking about, why doesn't he do something? Why doesn't he stop it? Why does he allow it? And of course, answering that question, I think, might look a little different depending on the type of pain and suffering that's being asked about or being experienced. For example, there's the pain that we cause to ourselves, right? And over the years, I got to tell you, I have had a front row seat to watch people drive their own bus into the wall and ask why, but not why does this happen or why does this keep happening to me, but actually, why God? Why, God? Why do you allow this to happen to me? And actually asking sometimes, why are you doing this to me? Why do you keep doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me again? There's an ancient proverb in the Hebrew Scriptures that goes like this: a person's own folly leads to their ruin, yet their heart rages against the Lord. By the way, do not miss our upcoming series starting on Mother's Day, Mama Didn't Raise No Fool. A series about learning wisdom from the Proverbs and from Mama. It's going to be great. But here's what this Proverbs is talking about. That people, against all wisdom and against all experience, and often their own experience, right? Making decisions, and often decision after decision after decision, that turns their lives into a FEMA disaster. Why does God allow that? Why does God allow that to happen? Why does God allow us to do that to ourselves? Self-inflicted pain, self-perpetuated pain is a significant source of the pain and the hurt and the suffering that we experience in this world. But it's not the only source, right? There's, of course, the pain that we cause to other people, including the people that were in the bus when we drove it into the wall, because as I've often told people, you were never the only person on your bus. If you're driving it into the wall, you're always taking somebody else, some others with you. And of course, the pain we cause others ranges from the everyday pain that all of us are causing others in in this world, either by omission or commission, meaning either by the stuff we could have done that we didn't do, or the things that we actually do that we maybe shouldn't have done, the ripple effect, think about it, of every single negative choice, every failure to love well, even the failure to smile and say hello and to be kind and to be human, all the way to the horrible evils that serial killers and tyrannical despots cause on their victims. Why does God allow us to hurt one another, even by accident, even by omission? Or it might be worded like this, and I heard a philosopher word it kind of like this week. Why does God allow us to hurt each other in the big ways? Actually, the way he asked the question was, what if the world wasn't so evil? I mean, it's just so bad, it's so hurtful. Maybe if we could only hurt each other in the little ways, right? Like, so perhaps I should still be allowed to have a bad day, okay? And be a little snarky and rude, and maybe ignore somebody and be less than gracious, or not do the kind thing that I could have done, because I don't feel like it. I'm just not in the mood, and maybe I should still be allowed to at least be that. But I would suggest to you that all of the little hurt is actually part of the big horrible hurt that ripples all day long into our world, thread after thread, that creates the fabric of this fallen world that can at times be so glorious and beautiful and good and noble and joyful, and at other times be heart-wrenchingly devastating and lonely and sad. Why does he allow us to do this to each other? And then that leads to a third kind of pain, maybe it's similar, but actually a little different. The pain that what we might say is humanity causing to others, to one another. Meaning the pain not only or just simply caused by individual choices, but the systemic nature. The systemic nature, sometimes on national, international, global scales, of certain realities that cause so much incredible pain and suffering, from something as obvious as the drug trade or the pornography industry and the sex trade, systems of evil in which every single little part of the system, including every single end user of any of those things, is part of a system of evil that is responsible for untold amounts of incredible suffering and evil for millions of people for generations and generations, all the way to the fact that the planet actually grows enough food to feed every single human being, and yet there is still starvation and famine, much of which is man-made or man-caused or man-perpetuated, all the way to the wars in Ukraine and in Gaza and right now in Sudan, and the complex issues and roots behind those conflicts. Systemic, complex evil and pain, often reaching internationally, affecting millions of people. Why does God allow us to collectively do so much damage to ourselves and to the world? Shouldn't he stop us? Or maybe, as the one young lady suggested, maybe he should have never made us to begin with. How could someone who loves and is good have even created people like us capable of such things? Or maybe he should have created us better. Like maybe he should have created us with more wisdom, though many would say the wisdom's there. Or maybe he should have put like limiters on us, like the go-karts at the track, so we could only go so far and cause so much pain, and then we just can't cause any more. Or maybe he could have inclined us to be a little less self-serving individually and collectively, though again, many would say those inclinations are there. And then, of course, there's the pain that we might say nature causes, the natural disasters, the so-called acts of God, earthquakes and storms and tornadoes and tsunamis and genetic defects and diseases and death. Why does God allow that? Why is that there? Why is there so much pain and suffering in the world? Every worldview, if it's honest, has to wrestle with this reality. And one response, of course, is to simply deny the existence of God, or that there's anything at all more to this life than this life. And for some, that actually brings some relief. That, in fact, it's the only way they can make sense of what we experience. There is no why. The question is a category mistake. There is no meaning. There is no reason. There's no plan. There's no hope, no justice, and no redemption at the end of the story. Suffering just is. As Dawkins said, this is exactly what we might expect to see if there is, at bottom, no design and no purpose, no evil and no good, just blind pitiless indifference. But for others, this view starts to unravel on itself. Dawkins' words, no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, only indifference, actually illuminates a bit of a problem with the view itself, that if there is no good and there is no evil, why do we ache over it so much? If our sympathy for others is just a byproduct of survivalist of the fittest evolution, as we talked about last week, why do we feel so deeply for people outside of our tribe that we don't even know and will never know? And if all of this is just delusion, then much of the best of humanity disappears with it. With the same views of science that Dawkins and Stephen Hawking and others have, but very different beliefs about God, Cambridge paleobiologist Simon Conway Morris suggests, suppose that the moral structure, the ethical voice, the endless yearning for a world made good are not the fantasies of a deracinated ape, that is a displaced and uprooted ape, but rather are signposts of deep realities in which our destiny may be involved. For others, the answer is not so much to deny the existence of God, but actually to deny in some way or another the existence of suffering itself, to deny the existence of suffering. And in some forms of New Age and westernized versions of Eastern religions, the whole idea of suffering, in fact, our very existence it's what's called Maya. It's all just illusion. Now, Buddhism, to be fair and to be precise, doesn't deny the existence of suffering per se. The first noble truth is suffering exists, like life is suffering. But rather it teaches the complete detachment from all of the things that cause us to experience suffering, all of which are actually considered illusions, beginning with the self, and then particularly detachment from all desire, all craving, all attachment to anything or to any outcome, that the path to end our experience of suffering is actually to eliminate the attachments and the desires that result in us wanting or needing anything. If you don't want or need anything at all, you will not suffer. And there's some truth, there's some rationality to that when you think about it. Like, hey, if I eliminate all attachment and I desire absolutely nothing, then maybe I will not suffer. And by the way, I want to say, I think there's some wisdom to this. Much of the pain and angst and anxiety and depression and darkness and anger that we feel is due to desires and attachments that we do not recognize and have not thought through or critically examined and are frankly often not even conscious of. And I think it would serve us well to ask with some regularity, like, what is this coming from? What am I so attached to? What do I desire so much? And am I even conscious of that? Is that something I need to be holding on to the way I am? But at the same time, many have suggested that in the end, in this particular case, the cure might actually be worse than the disease. Last week, I mentioned this guy named Jonathan Haidt, social scientist at New York University, NYU. And Haidt has a deep respect for Buddhism. He writes in his book, The Happiness Hypothesis, that he would have considered the Buddha to be a strong contender for the world's best philosopher or psychologist for the last 3,000 years. But then he writes, as he researched happiness and suffering, he actually came to a very different conclusion. That perhaps the key to facing suffering is not detachment, but the opposite. That non-attachment might actually shield us from suffering, and to love is to be vulnerable. Hey, the song says, love hurts. And to desire is to risk disappointment, absolutely. But as Haidt notes, non-attachment also deprives us of the greatest joys in life. And yes, our attachments and our desires, or maybe speaking largely for myself, my attachments and desires can be profoundly misplaced. And yet, attachment and love and passion and desire and striving, when correctly or appropriately aligned, they are equally a part of what is most good and glorious and joyful and beautiful about our humanity. And it turns out that both denying the existence of God and anything more to this life and denying the existence of suffering and detaching from it all leaves us as less than human. Is there another option? And the answer is yes. For Jesus and his first followers, they lived with a set of fundamental assumptions about the story that we find ourselves in, that for me personally, and this might just be, I might be the only one in the room, that for me personally, don't necessarily answer the question of why is there so much suffering. They weren't even attempting to answer that question directly, but it sets the question in a context that allows for a third response to embrace the goodness of God and at the same time face suffering as the true evil that it actually is. No attempt to explain it or to spin it or put, lipstick on it or call it good and it all works out for good or to deny it in any way, but to call evil evil and to hate it with a perfect hatred. A set of assumptions. And the first of those assumptions is so important, and it's this right here. This is not the way it's supposed to be. This is not the way that it's supposed to be. The world we see, as we see it, the world that we live in is not the world that God created it to be. And so when people ask, hey, if God is God and he's able, he's good and he's all powerful, why does he not create a world that is good? And the answer is, he did. He did. In fact, the story opens with the Creator surveying all that he has made and seeing that it is all not just good, but very good. Like the story opens with God creating a good world and populating it with beings that are designed to exist as God himself exists in unity and oneness and wholeness with one another, something called shalom, a complete peace and wholeness with one another and with creation and with God itself. It was created all to be one. Created, we're told, that we are in the very image of God himself to rule over his creation as his representation in it, designed for love, designed to, in fact, our very neural wiring for healthy, unleveraged, deep attachment, self-giving love, designed for love, and designed for something called efficacy. We are designed not to be robots or biological machines or puppets, not slaves to our DNA or our circumstances or our histories, but agents of meaningful cause. That's what the word efficacy means, meaningful cause and effect, that we are created to be able to act on creation, to lead and to love and to rule and carry forward God's creation in meaningful ways, which implies the freedom to do so and to do so meaningfully. We were created for efficacy, designed in his image, the most efficacious being, if you will, in the universe, for love, for efficacy, and finally, designed for glory, designed to be glorious. A goodness, a meaningfulness, a depth and nobility and beauty to what it means to be human in all of us. And honestly, I just got to say, this part of the story is not spoken enough. It's this part of the story right here that I think reflects things that are deeply true about who we are, about how we are, from our neural wiring to our emotional makeup, and to why we are, like aspects of our experience that we talked about last week, like morality, moral beauty, and why it creates such elevation, universally speaking. What is that? And aspects of meaning that it's this part of the story that I think resonates more deeply with me, personally speaking, than either of the other two stories and explanations for, in explaining why there's so much suffering. We must at the same time also be able to explain why there's so much good, why there's so much glory and beauty, and why the suffering and evil that is there seems so tragically out of place. Why is it out of place in this story if there is nothing at the bottom but blind, pitiless indifference? Maybe it is actual like these endless yearnings for a world made good, in Simon Connor Morris's words, actually are signposts of deep desires that might actually be attached to our destiny as humans, to what it means to be human. God created a good and glorious world, and that included us, and the residue of it is still out there and around us and within us. But this world is not that world. This world is not the world as he made it. And so, according to the story, whether you understand this part of the story to be literally true or just metaphorically true, according to the story that Jesus and his first followers considered themselves to be living in, human beings who were the images of God in creation rebelled and went our our own way. And the script that was written by the author got balled up and trashed and then rewritten by us, and I would say by all of us, the result of which was that unity, that oneness, that shalom that it was created to exist in was completely fractured. God's good creation became broken and disfigured and diseased almost beyond recognition, a disease that, according to the story, has infected the entirety of the created order. In fact, Paul, the Apostle Paul, you may have heard of before, he's riffing on this ancient story that I'm telling right now in a letter to Jesus' followers in the city of Rome, and he puts it this way: for the creation was subjected to frustration, famine, earthquakes, DNA, birth defects, sickness, war, racism, genocide are part of the whole of human experience and part of creation's experience as well. But this is not the way that it is supposed to be. And because of that, I believe we can never, ever simply conclude that because something is happening in this world, it must have been God's will, as if God's will is always done in this fallen planet. I believe the truth is that that we now live in a world that more often than not, God's will is not being done on earth as it is in heaven. This is not the way it's supposed to be. It's like, you can think of it this way, a vicious, life-threatening virus has invaded the bloodstream of creation. Like this may or may not connect with anything because it's been a while. The smallpox virus, like the smallpox virus invading a human body, and once contracted, the pox, the spots, they emerge like everywhere, all over the body, and there would be no sense isolating any one pox or any number of them and going, why this one? Why this one here? Why is it here and not there? Why did it show up on my cheek and not my elbow? The spots, all of them, and they're everywhere, are manifestations that something terribly is wrong. The body has been invaded, and the sane response that anyone would have in that context is not to question the individual occurrences of the pox, but to attack the virus because something's wrong. And in a similar way, every expression of suffering and evil and pain in this world is a manifestation that something is terribly wrong on planet Earth. Something is terribly wrong in the cosmos, if you will. The world has become a crippled, fallen, broken place, and this is not the way that it's supposed to be. And then there's another assumption that really needs to be said, and that's this, that every pain becomes God's pain. Every pain becomes God's pain. I'll never forget on 9/11, and if you're old enough and you were somewhere where you were watching that happen, as I watched those towers filled with people begin to crumble into dust, I was speechless. I was in tears. I bet you probably were. How deeply it hit me in those moments that God knows the pain and the terror and the fear of every single human soul from the inside. From the inside. God knew and felt the terror that those passengers must have felt in the moments before their planes smashed into those buildings or into the ground. He knew the panic and fear in the stairwells as people running for their lives began to feel the buildings crumbling around them. He knew the ache and loss of every surviving loved one grieving for the loss of their family members, but he knew a whole lot more than that. He knew every ripple of pain that led up to that Tuesday, and he knew every ripple of pain that would lead from it. He knew in those moments the pain that would be caused as children who lost parents or husbands who lost wives and vice versa turned their ache and their anger and their grief and their uncertainty inside only to have it seep out like toxins in their lives for years and years to come. And he knew the hurt that bred the hatred that would cause some men to hate with such resolve that they would do something so evil and believe it to actually be good. And he knew the hurt that had caused that hurt, and the hurt that had caused that hurt, and on and on and on, knowing intimately the evil and the pain of thousands of generations of human beings as pain begets pain in this fallen world. And he knew it all and knows it all intimately from the inside. And I began to think, my feeble experience of empathy in moments like that is weakened by a tiny little perspective and a huge dose of self-centeredness, not to mention my own social location. But God has no such limitations. God experiences the pain of this world, including yours, in a way that is intimate and personal and complete. But God doesn't just experience our pain or know our pain like parents hurt for our children. And if you're a parent, it's about as close as we can get to like real empathy, right? He doesn't just know our pain like that. God has taken upon himself our actual pain, our actual sufferings. And at a specific point in time, God actually joined us on our diseased planet. You might even say in our disease. And he bore upon himself the full weight of all of it, all of the pain and all of the evil and all of the suffering. The ancient prophet Isaiah, writing 7 centuries before Jesus, mind you, spoke of this, that someday this would happen. And he referred to someone called the servant, that the servant would come. And he says of the servant, surely he, the servant, he took up our pain. He took up our pain. He bore our sufferings. He was pierced for our transgressions, the way our own brokenness ripples into the world. He was crushed for our iniquities. And then he shifts focus a little bit and he says, the punishment that brought us peace. And he's speaking past tense like it's already happened. The punishment that brought us or brings us shalom was on him. And by his wounds, we are healed. And when Christ, the servant, was stripped naked, beaten to within an inch of his life, and nailed to that splintered instrument of torture, spit on, cursed, mocked, and laughed at, God descended into our hell. God descended into the one that we created. And he took it on himself. And he made it a part of himself, which then leads to a third assumption in the story, that God's opposition to evil is absolute. It is absolute. We tend to trivialize a lot of what, we don't even call it evil. We would never call it evil. We certainly don't call it sin. But we tend to trivialize a lot of what ripples out of our lives in not so great ways, right? And we talk about our rights or our freedom, or it's just my choice, or justifiable choices, or mistake. It was just a mistake, or social influences, heredity, family of origin. We tend to trivialize and kind of shrug off a lot of it. Not so with God. Not so with God. He sees it, like he really sees it. He sees the evil. He sees that virus for what it really is and for what it's doing to us and what it's doing to everybody else, and with a resolve that dwarfs our own. God's opposition to evil and the destruction that it wreaks and has wreaked on his good and glorious creation, it drove him to the extreme. It drove him to the cross. And Christ, the servant, altered the course of human history on that cross. He interrupted the unbroken cycle of evil for evil and pain for pain. And according to Isaiah, he injected healing and peace, shalom. He injected the cure. He injected forgiveness and healing and peace into the bloodstream of this diseased human race. And he continues to do so. And he continues to transform the course of history, one life at a time, as individuals like you crack open our virus-ridden hearts and allow his forgiveness and his healing and his peace to wash over us and wash through us and begin to change us from the inside out. The world is not the way it's supposed to be, but God has loved and does love this world, this fallen cosmos, and us way too much to leave it the way we are. And so John, who was an eyewitness follower of Jesus, he was part of the whole thing. Years later, he writes a story of what it was like to be a part of that journey with Jesus. He summarizes it this way in his biography of Jesus in these famous words: "For God loved the cosmos," the whole of it. God loved the world so much that he gave his son, that everyone who believes, everyone who puts their trust and their unwavering allegiance upon him would never die. They would have eternal life. For God did not send his son into the world to judge and condemn the world, but to save the world, to save the cosmos through him. Which then leads to a fourth assumption that's essential to the story. Evil is not a forever thing. Evil is not a forever thing. This world is not the way it's supposed to be, and it will not always be this way. God has saved and is saving and ultimately will save the cosmos, his creation. And here's another part of the story that I think modern day Jesus followers have lost a little bit, because for the original followers of Jesus, this idea of salvation, this word salvation, wasn't so much about the individual experience of forgiveness for my sins in heaven when I die. It was so much bigger, so much more important than that. In fact, this term that John uses, eternal life, it's actually his shorthand for the life of the age to come. What other writers of Jesus' life refer to as the kingdom of God, the life of the age to come, when God, who created all things the first time good, will renew and recreate and restore all things, and there will be a new heaven and a new earth. And to quote John again in another document, a famous document known as the Revelation, he captures that moment, that scene, as like a bride coming for her groom, or coming to her groom, as heaven and earth are brought together again, as God and creation and humanity are restored and reunited again, once again in shalom. And here's how he describes this scene. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, look, as the bride is coming down. God's dwelling is now among his people. Heaven and earth have been reunited, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be among them or with them, and he will be their God." And then John writes, and he will wipe every tear from their eyes. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death. And there will be no more mourning or crying or pain, for the curse will be gone. The old order of things, the world as it is not supposed to be, it will be passed away. And the one who was seated on the throne said, "Look, look, I'm making everything new. I'm making everything new again." This was a fundamental assumption that Jesus and his first followers had of the story that they were in as they saw it. There will be redemption. There will be justice. There will be healing. And all of that evil, all of it, every last vestige of the virus, it will be gone. And all things will be new. And these were their fundamental assumptions. This world is not the way it's supposed to be. It's created good and glorious, and the residue of it is still there. I mean, we still see it at times, and it's still here in us. But this is not the way the world is supposed to be now. We are under a curse. We are like living with this virus, but it will not always be this way. The injection of the cure has already happened, and for those who are willing, we are a part of it. And it's this story that actually allows us, or allows me personally, to embrace at the same time the goodness of God that has always been, and at the same time face suffering as the true evil that it actually is, and not attempt to make it anything better than that. And that leads me, as it did all of Jesus' first followers, to at least a couple of very, very strong convictions. This is kind of the so what part. Like, so if that's true, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for you? And here's a couple of strong convictions that this leads me to. First is this: I want to hate evil like God hates evil. I want to hate it. And we often talk about this thing called sin around here. We define it as everything that's messed up in the world, and everything that's messed up in you, and everything that's messed up with us, which includes everything that's messed up. That includes cancer, and death, and dementia, and tsunamis, and earthquakes, and racism, and hatred, and rudeness, and just our inability at sometimes to be attached and to be loving. It includes everything, and therefore, we hate it. We hate it all because all of it is an aberration and a deformity and an affront to the goodness of God and his good creation. And at the same time, as I say that, I got to recognize that means I hate my evil just as much, because here's the reality check. My evil, it's the same evil. My evil is the same evil as all of that. It's part of the same thing. Maybe less horrific at times in its immediate results, but it is still part of the same horrible hurt that is felt every day all over this planet. In fact, years ago, a century or more ago, the London Daily News invited readers to write in on the topic, "What's wrong with the world?" And British writer G.K. Chesterton submitted the following response: "Dear sirs, I am. Yours truly, G.K. Chesterton. What's wrong with the world? Right here. That's me. It's my anger unleashed on someone that I think has it coming to them. It's my cold distance from my spouse or my friend because I'm having a bad day. It's my rudeness towards a stranger, my self-gratification, my self-centeredness. It's every thought, every word, every action that I take or fail to take that ripples in any way that wounds another person, that then becomes part of their hurt, causing them, of course, to wound another as pain begets pain begets pain, as it ripples through this fallen world. It's all the same evil. It's all of the same. And so it is not enough to oppose and hate evil that's out there. I gotta hate it and oppose it when it's in here too, because it's the same thing. I want to hate evil. I want to hate all of it, the way God hates evil. And I want to heal suffering as God heals suffering. I want to be his eyes, his mouth, his hands, his feet. I want to be his salve on the wound, so to speak. To be a follower of Jesus, to the first followers of Jesus, to just join that movement meant that we become part of the cure. We become the part of the solution and never, ever part of the disease. In fact, to quote John one more time in another document he wrote, this time a letter, he says it this way: this is how we know what love is. Like, hey, what's love? I'll give you a definition. Jesus, the Messiah, laid down his life for us, and therefore, we ought to lay down our lives for one another, for our brothers and sisters. And then he says, and if anybody has the ability to do that, has the means and sees a brother or sister in need and has no pity on them, does nothing for them, how can such a person say that the love of God is in them if they do not love with actions and truth, because that is the love of God? In other words, part of what he's saying is that the self-giving love of God has direct, and we would not like this idea, but here's what he's saying. The self-giving love of God has direct and obligatory implications for all of us. So here's how they saw the world. If this is who God is, if this is what he's about, if this is who Jesus the Messiah is, and if we have joined his side, then this is who we are, and this is what we do. And by the way, these ideas define us as a community. This is why we do so much of what we do. This is why we're so often jumping in behind ways of bringing just sometimes even the littlest bit of healing and hope to things that are so hurting and broken in the world, whether that's our partnership with Orange County Rescue Mission's Village of Hope, or our commitment to single-parent families, or raising $30,000 together and then a bunch of us getting together in a parking lot to pack 100,000 meals for orphans in Zambia with Kids Feeding Kids. And this is why this weekend, for every single Connect card that gets turned in all weekend long on paper or digitally, we're going to donate $5 to that group that's working in the Sudan, because it's not enough to just talk about these things or theorize about them. This is the way the world is, and this is who God, our Heavenly Father, is, and we are a part of the cure, part of the solution. So maybe as we wind down, you were thinking about filling one of those out as a couple, like, hey, we'll just do one. And tonight you go, hey, you do your own. I got me. You got to do you, right? Or maybe you weren't going to fill one of those things out at all because you don't normally. It's like we go, hey, everybody do this. And you're like, yeah, don't do that. And tonight you go, I'm filling one out because I'm part of this. We're going to do. And all weekend long, whether you're watching online or you're here in the room, all weekend long, $5 for every single Connect card to that group that we're working with in the Sudan. But this is why, and we do that kind of thing all the time, right? And this is why. This right here is why we do so much of what we do, because we see ourselves as part of a big story that inspires us to want to embrace the goodness of God, to join his side, to embrace the goodness of God, and at the same time to face the suffering in the world as truly evil as it is, to hate evil like God hates evil, and to heal suffering like God heals suffering. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to be. But all of that raises a question. What's all this stuff about the Bible? Like every time you guys ask one of these questions, you talk about the Bible and what the Bible says. I mean, that begs another question, right? Are we supposed to take all that stuff seriously? Like, come on, you don't take that seriously, do you? Isn't the Bible just a collection of myths and fairy tales and stories made up hundreds of years after the events? And that is another great, great question to think about and to talk about. And so we're going to think and talk about it next weekend. I hope you'll join us for part 4 of our series, The Big God Questions. But let me close this in prayer. And maybe as we take a second, as you think about what we just talked about and wonder about your own place in it, maybe this would be a moment for you to recognize some of the ways that you've been a part of the pain in the world. Maybe some ways that you're being a part of what's broken and hurting in the world right now as not the solution cure, but maybe a little bit as part of the disease. And to resolve in your heart and have a conversation with your Heavenly Father who loves you, that you want to be a part of the solution and never a part of the problem. You want to be a part of the cure and never a part of the disease. And Heavenly Father, we crack open these virus-ridden hearts of ours, and we ask that you would inject the cure deep, deep, deep within us, that your healing and your shalom, your peace and your forgiveness would wash over us and wash through us and then come pouring out of us as we become a part of your story and bringing your goodness and your grace and your healing and your redemption to a world that so desperately needs it. And we pray that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. My hope is that we can walk out of these doors tonight and into a world that is filled with so much pain and suffering and just be committed to making it better, to making it a place filled with more of God's love and to make his love famous. That's really one of probably the most foundational thought of this community of Terra Nova. So that's my hope this week. As we do leave tonight, I want to encourage you to drop off that Connect card, fill it out quickly if you haven't, and we will be making those donations this week. Also, stop by that table for Kids Feeding Kids. This is really a great way. I mean, I know it's May, but it kind of sets the tone for the year in a way for what we do with loving our community and loving the world. So I want to encourage you to get involved. Multiple ways to do so. Stop by the table, get your questions answered. Or maybe you don't have questions. You could just sign up tonight because you know you're good to go. So do that on our way out. And we'll see you next week for part 4 of the Big God Questions. Have a great week.